This is the Billy Slater podcast. We are back for another year with the man himself, Billy Slater. Billy, happy new rugby league year to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm well, thanks, Salty. Happy 2026, and what are we, 6 days away from the season opener? And geez, it flies. Time flies when you're having fun. And the off season was great, but looking forward to a bit of footy now.
Well, you've already had a little bit of footy. This must have been special for you over the weekend. You went back home and put the boots on.
Yeah, it was one of the more rewarding things I've ever done, to be honest, Salty. And I retired 7.5 years ago, and not once have I contemplated playing again. I've never really wanted to play again. The body's never really wanted to play again, but I got a text message from a mate back home that the international all-stars were coming to Innisfail, and they were putting on an event where they bring a whole heap of ex-NRL players. We had some wonderful players like Cliffy Lyons, Sam Thaiday, Ben Hannett, James Tarmow, Gerard Beale, Antonio Winterstein, John Hopewadi was up there playing. And I just thought, if they're going to go up and play in my hometown on my junior ground, well, I felt a responsibility to go up and be there as well. It was an incredible event. Callender Park, the local ground in Innisfail, was full. Nearly 6,000 people turned up. They were along the dead ball line. It was like one of those old school scenes where people were just sitting wherever they could find a spot. On full time, they just all engulfed the field. All the kids ran on the field. Very unstructured, but that's what made it so good. And I had a great time. I was only up there for a couple of days, and I just want to express my gratitude and thanks to the international legends of league and all the star players that went up there and went through the schools and through the community. Look, Salty, rugby league is a part of Far North Queensland. It's a part of Innisfail, and it's a part of me, and it's a reason why I've been able to do what I've done the last 25 years is because it's a religion up there, and that's how I grew up. And to go up there and help give back to that community through the game that we love, it was really fulfilling, and I had a great sense of pride. So got the opportunity to play one more game alongside some local talent like Ty Williams, played State of Origin for Queensland, premiership winning front rower for the Cowboys, Scott Bolton, who is also from Innisfail. So we played for the local team, and we played up against the All-Stars, which was fantastic. So, like I said, one of the more rewarding things I've ever done.
That's awesome. Light the fire again, Billy?
It sort of did, but yeah, it's Monday morning right now, Salty, so that fire is well and truly out. So yeah, I'm in recovery mode, and I will be for the next few months, I reckon.
I love events like that, and I know they go all over the country, the Legends of League guys, and that is yep. Tremendous that you had such a great time, and for the kids to be able to sit there and see yourself and all the other greats there. I think it's just wonderful. You can't put a price on that.
You can't, and it's not just an injection for rugby league in the area. It's just an injection of energy in the area. The Innisfail locals, the kids will be going to school today buzzing, whether they play rugby league or not. That they will be buzzing from the event that it was, and for the kids that want to play rugby league, They can't wait to get to training now. They can't wait to put the boots on and go and have a game of footy. And like I said, it's something that I would recommend every regional area look to do. The International Legends of League, run by Troy Byers, they do a fantastic job, and I couldn't recommend it high enough. And they raise money for the junior clubs, which goes back into the community. We all know how junior clubs run. They're run on volunteers, and the QRL do a fantastic job up there in Queensland. And yeah, really proud to be an Innisfail boy, really proud to be a little leprechaun, and hopefully we can see some more leprechauns come through and maybe play in the NRL one day.
Yeah, let's certainly hope so. So well done for getting up there and getting involved. Actually, you've had a busy start to the year, Billy, as far as not just league is concerned. We'll get to that in just a moment. Magic Millions saw you at the Australian Open as well. It's been a busy start to the year, but you have had some other rugby league involvements. You got the Maroons squad together earlier in January.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, back end of January, start of Feb, we only had about 24 hours, just one weekend where we got an opportunity to get the squad back together. Look, at the end of last year, you get an opportunity for about a few hours after the game to absorb what the 2025 series was, and then players are off preparing for other games, which is fully understandable with the club footy only a couple of days later, and some players playing on the Friday night after the Wednesday Origin. So we didn't really get an opportunity to soak in what was last year. So I thought it was important to get that group back together and just absorb what they actually achieved and how they achieved it. Now there's going to be some learnings and some great values going forward for the 2026 series, but at the same time, I think sometimes we just move forward a little bit too quick and you don't acknowledge and appreciate what you've actually achieved. So I thought it was important to get those guys together and just absorb what they had done last year.
Yeah, well done. Well done on doing that. And Origin has been one of the hot topics so far this year, and that's Origin eligibility and the changes to those rules. Just off the top, before we talk about specific players and the like, what's your take on what's come out in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, I'm not against it, Salty, and I don't actually think the Origin eligibility has changed all that much. It's probably more a change in the international eligibility and who you can represent as a nation. Look, being a Queenslander has its own identity, but it's not a nationality. So there's a lot of different nations that make up Queenslanders. And I think Peter and Andrew are just moving with the times. We've got a very diverse country here in Australia that have a whole heap of different backgrounds, and I just think it's probably the right time to move in this direction. So, yeah, I don't see the eligibility for state of origin a whole heap different. You still have to grow up with that inspiration of being a Queenslander, and you still have to have that inspiration from this footy team as you grow up, and then you've got to want to inspire that next Queenslander coming through. So, I think if you're in Queensland before your 13th birthday, you have a whole heap of time to grow that inspiration and that passion for our state. And I don't think a whole heap changes. So, you look at, we're going to talk about some individuals shortly, and you look at AJ Brimson, and, we're all made up of a whole different history. Everyone's different, and we've all got different heritage. AJ's mum is an English woman, and she was born and grew up in England. And for someone to want to represent their parents and where they're from, I think that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a Queenslander. So I think we're just moving with the times, and at the end of the day, what the players did and the standard that they played last year, you have to have something deeper and something that motivates you more than just wanting to play footy, and that's why this jersey and this team has inspired so many people, because it starts with that fabric and that integrity of being a Queenslander.
So it's a great point that you make. You don't want this jersey to turn into another, say, glorified club jersey. There's so much more that goes to putting that maroon jersey on. So you won't change your criteria, I gather, in what you've just said there as coach into how you pick your team.
Well, it's not my team, Salty. It's Queensland's team.
Well, exactly.
I just play a role in it. But you're absolutely right. The integrity of the maroon jersey is the priority. That is why this game of State of Origin is so big, is because it means so much to people, and that's why this conversation is valid and it's warranted, because everyone's got different opinions, and everyone's worried about the integrity of State of Origin. But I'm not worried. I'm not worried because you still have to be a Queenslander, and it's got its own identity. There's a whole heap of nationalities that make up Queenslanders, and I understand that. you only have to go, through Queensland and see how much it means to them. But we're all different, and we all have different heritages, and we all come from different places. So as long as you've got that Queenslander in you, and that's built in different ways for different individuals. So I think we're just moving with the times.
Well, you've touched on one player in AJ Brimson, who we have seen in a Queensland jersey before. One player who comes into calculations now, and my understanding is Billy's very excited at the prospect of playing for Queensland because he loves the Maroons, is Sharks back rower Briton Nikorima, who has represented New Zealand, but he very much is Origin eligible. I know we're only in February and a lot of water to flow under the bridge, and you've got to be loyal to those that have won a series. But it's nice to know that someone of Britain's ilk is very keen and passionate about playing Origin.
Yeah, well, Brit, he was a 9-year-old boy when he moved to Queensland, so. I've got a feeling that Briton Nikorima was the same as yourself, the same as me, sitting in the lounge room on a Wednesday evening, watching the Queensland State of Origin team, probably with a maroon jersey on, being inspired by the likes of Gordon Tallis, Cameron Smith, Greg Inglis, these sort of players that played in this team, and grew up with that passion. When you're a 9, 10, 11-year-old boy, in those lounge rooms, that's built into you through your upbringing, and that's the important stuff. So he's a wonderful player. And I'm sure he would love to get the opportunity to represent Queensland. And like you said, the players, they set an extremely high standard for themselves, an extremely high standard for this footy team. So to play in this footy team, you're going to have to play and live up to those standards that the players, not just in the past, but in that recent past, last year, the last 4 years, they've really risen the bar, and Queenslanders have got a really high standard to play and to perform at to make this footy team. So that certainly won't change. And they've given me a criteria to watch over the first 11 rounds. So that's really important for me to go and honour them with the standards that they've created.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? You've got that first 10, 11 weeks the season now to watch these players, including Kalen Pongers of the world and all those that are now, as you say, have played for Queensland but have got that opportunity now. And it's a great way that you put it right at the start of talking about this, to still honour, I suppose, heritage and where they've lived and growing up. So it's probably opened up more opportunities for players, but still to be able to represent.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the first 11 rounds of the season is probably my busiest time of the year, and just watching players and watching individuals, with the football, without the football, what habits have they got in their game? And like I said, honouring the standards that they've created in this footy team, because at the end of the day, that's my job, to keep that accountability in those players to uphold the standards that they've already created. Look, I get the luxury to see how much being a Queenslander and playing in this footy team means to these guys in their preparation. We've had the talk around Kalen Ponga wanting to represent New Zealand potentially. There's been talk in the past of Hamiso and Tino maybe representing Samoa. At the end of the day, for me, I understand how much being a Queenslander means to them. I understand how much playing for Queensland means to them, and I get to see that at a personal level. Yeah. So, look, I understand when there's a diverse culture in your family, that there's going to be opportunities to play for different nations and that, but I see a common theme with the Queenslanders, that they have a real passion to play in this maroon jersey, and that's one thing that I certainly look for.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Billy, actually, just a question without notice. Just thought of something as you mentioned Hamiso There's talk around the Dolphins that Trey Fuller may wear the number 1 jersey this year with Hamiso playing in the back line. You'd have to guess to say in the centres. It's where he plays regularly, representatively for Queensland. That wouldn't be a bad thing, would it, from a Origin coach's point of view, to have him playing in the back line where he plays for you, playing week in, week out, if that is indeed the way that Christian Wolf and the Dolphins do go come round 1?
Yeah, well, Hammer's last game for Queensland was with the number 1 on his back, and he was one of the best players. He was exceptional in that game 3 last year, and he's played on the wing for Queensland. He's played in the centres. Look, I think when you've got a player like Hammer, there's no doubt that his best position is fullback. Getting him in and around the football is such a priority for your footy team when you've got a guy like Hammer in your team. But you've got to build your team with what you've got. Not just with what Queensland's got, or it's what you've got. So for the Dolphins, they've got to look at their squad and they've got to go, what is our best possible team, and how do we outlay our best possible football? And where you fit in that, you have to bend with the team. So, that's for Christian Wolf and his coaching staff and probably his senior players to have a conversation about. I think Christian Wolf's are probably of the same opinion as me. Is Hammer's best position is fullback. That's without doubt. But is that the best position you need him to play in your football team? So it is very different. And just because people move positions for the good of the team doesn't mean that that's a demotion or that's where they need to play. That's their best position. It's the best thing for the team. And we're in a selfless environment, in a team environment. So that's the one great thing. One thing I know about Hamiso is he will play wherever and do whatever he needs to do for the footy team.
Well, Billy, talking about fullbacks, there's one I want to ask you about, and that's Sualauvi Fa'alogo at the Melbourne Storm. I ventured along while I was in Melbourne in January and over to Goss's paddock there and watched the Storm train. And one thing that stood out was Sualauvi Fa'alogo. Not just we know how good a runner he is, but firing some bullet passes to Will Warbrick, who himself looks really good heading into this season. So, what's your take on Sua and what he'll bring to the number 1 jersey at Melbourne this year, and working in with Cam and Jerome in particular?
Yeah, he'll bring a lot of energy, that's for sure. He's an energetic sort of person and a very energetic player. He's got a lot of bright stuff in his game. He's electric. He'll get people out of their seats. But he's still very young in his NRL career. He's quite inexperienced. He's only played 7 NRL games at fullback. He's played about 20 NRL games all up, but only 7 at fullback. So he's still got a lot to learn. He's going to do some brilliant stuff this year. I've got no doubt about that. We're going to stand up and we're going to applaud some of the stuff that Sualauvi Fa'alogo does, but he's also going to come up with some learnings, some errors that he's going to really benefit from and learn from. I'm looking forward to helping him out through the year and helping him out through the early stages of his career. He hasn't had the best last couple of seasons. He had a shoulder injury a couple of years ago that he nursed through the whole year. And I know that the toll that can take on you playing with an injury like that, especially at the start of your career. And then last year he had a few niggles. He had that really bad hamstring injury midway through the season that kept him out for a whole chunk of games. So he's had a bit of a checkered last couple of years, but by all reports, he's had a fantastic preseason. He's still very raw, and he's got to learn a lot in the game, and he's going to learn a lot over the next couple of seasons. But I'm looking forward to watching him play. He's a very excited individual, and the other thing I love about Sua Salty, and there's not a whole heap of this in the game anymore. A couple of years ago, he signed a long-term deal at the Melbourne Storm. He's a genuine fullback. And when he signed that deal, it was well before Ryan Pappenhausen had even thought of walking away from the game. So he's a genuine number 1, and he signed a long-term deal to stay at the Melbourne Storm, even though that jersey was sewn up for an indefinite period of time. And that showed a lot of loyalty. He sees himself as a Melbourne Storm person. He came through the junior system down in Victoria, and he wants to represent that. So there's probably no better flag to fly that part of the game than Sualauvi Fa'alogo. There's cups down here named after him. He's a crowd favourite, and I'm just looking forward to him starting the season. And there's a lot of challenges that Melbourne will face this year with the players that departed at the end of last year off the back of 2 grand final losses. But I think the energy of Sualauvi Fa'alogo will certainly help that.
Yeah, for sure. He's an exciting young player. There's no doubt about that. And we look forward to seeing how he goes as well this year. Billy, it is, we've got to remind everyone, as you mentioned before, it is Monday morning. We're recording this podcast. So Nathan Cleary tonight facing the judiciary for a high tackle. Panthers are rolling the dice. If unsuccessful, he'll miss 3 weeks. You think it's a worthwhile gamble from the Panthers?
Going for a downgrade?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, to be honest, I've seen the incident, but I haven't looked at it really closely. The point of contact and all that sort of stuff. There's obviously been some contact with the head, which is why the result of a charge is in place. The fact that they're going for a downgrade would indicate that they've got some other examples that were of a similar nature that were graded a grade 1. So if they can get that downgrade, will he get off? Will he get off with a fine if it's downgraded to a grade 1? Or will he still have a weaker suspension?
I'll have to double check how far down it'll go, but I'm pretty sure he'll get down to a fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's well worthwhile. It did. Look, obviously, when you rush out of the line, you're always going to run the risk of this sort of thing happening. It didn't look extremely forceful and real physical. I think the opposition player bounced back to his feet. I believe. Did he go off or was he? I can't really remember the incident. I do remember seeing the replay, but I wasn't watching that game live, so. It's really hard to comment. Look, I think if they're going, they're very measured. They're a measured club and a group of decision makers that the Panthers they wouldn't be running the risk of a 3-game suspension with Nathan Cleary if they didn't really feel that they could go there and get a downgrade. So they've obviously got some great evidence that's going to back it up. And to be honest, I don't want to see Nathan Cleary missing 3 games at the start of the season. So trial game, it didn't look like it was an incident that would warrant 3 games. So I just hope he doesn't get 3 games. But me hoping and what the rules are and how it's all plays out is 2 different things. So, yeah, hopefully for Nathan and the Panthers' sake and for the game of rugby league that we see him out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think nearly every rugby league fan will certainly be agreeing with you. Probably fans of who the Panthers play in the first couple of weeks.
Who have they got?
Well, they definitely got Brisbane in week 1, and I think any Brisbane fan surely would want to see the Panthers head to Suncorp Stadium, a sellout on a Friday night with Nathan Cleary in the lineup. I'm sure all rugby league fans would want to see him there. I know myself as a commentator calling that game wants to see him there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Panthers, they play the Roosters in round 1, and then they have... Is it the Roosters?
No, Brisbane in round 1.
Sorry. That's a rabbit. The Panther and the rabbit look really similar on the NRL
They've got
app.
the Sharks.
So
they've got the Sharks.
They got the Sharks in round 1.
Round 2.
And then they head to
Brisbane
the
round 1.
Roosters in round 2.
Brisbane round 1?
Okay. What am I looking at?
You're looking at last year. I think you're on last year's draw.
No, I'm not. Salty, we can't even get this right. How are we going? It's going to be a long
Panthers,
season.
Sharks round 2.
Yeah, but that's round 1 because... No, sorry. This Vegas stuff is throwing me. I thought... Yeah, no, my bad. My bad. It's the Broncos.
Yes.
It's the Broncos on Friday night. Live and free on Channel 9.
That's right.
The Panthers and the Broncos. What a belter that's going to be on the Friday night. Coming off the Thursday night game with the Parramatta Eels and and the Melbourne Storm. You know, and there's been a bit of would you say bad blood or trials and tribulations through the off-season with those two clubs. So, you know, obviously Zach Lomax leaving the Eels and wanting to go to the Melbourne Storm. So, you know, I don't know. That's going to be interesting. Craig Bellamy has never lost a round one game in his career of 23 seasons. So he'll be going for 24 there.
Yeah, he will be. And Parramatta, you know, you this time last year were saying they're going to be one of your teams to watch.
Yeah.
And the back end of the season showed just what Jason Riles is doing at the Eels. Jonah Pezzett is there for 1 year. Isaiah Yongi and these other youngsters that he unearthed last year. Boy, they're a club on the rise.
It just took a little bit longer than I'd expected, and that's fine. A new coach trying to implement new traits within a footy club, but they'd found their identity towards the end of the season, and not just that, they've picked up through this trial period in the same fashion. I think they can play finals this year. I think the consistency of having their halfback in Mitchell Moses back on the field, like he was out for a long period of time last year with injury. So having him on the field for a huge chunk of the 26th season will certainly be beneficial for him. Jonah Pezzett will add some stability. They do lose a bit of strike in Dylan Brown, but I think they're a footy team on the rise, that's for sure. I love their fullback. I think he's a star, and you know, they've got a few other good young players, Kartonga, the back rower, that have got another pre-season under their belt. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching them play this year. And they will go into probably this first game against Melbourne as it's either a flip of the coin or their favourites. So, they're a team to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is the Billy Slater podcast as we head towards round one of the 2026 NRL season.